Good evening, or morning, or whenever your life group meets. I'm David Van Bever. I'm pastor at First Baptist Buffalo, and I'm excited that you are going to join us for our community group preview and discussion prompts. Just want to review a little bit with you about Jonah chapter 4. So we've now come to the last chapter in the book of Jonah, and it's pretty exciting. If you remember, Jonah chapter 1, Jonah flees when God tells him to go. Jonah 2, Jonah is in the belly of the whale, and he is praying and asking God to deliver him. Jonah chapter 3, Jonah is delivered, and he then goes to Nineveh, and he calls out against the city, and they repent. They get in sackcloth and ashes, and they call out to the Lord. And I love some of those last words from the king there in Nineveh, where he says, perhaps the Lord will relent. And then that last verse of chapter 3 is that God did relent. He heard their prayers. He forgave them. He saved them. But Jonah chapter 1 is a real contrast. Maybe an unexpected thing happens. Jonah, who seems like he's a changed person in Jonah chapter 3, it says very clearly in verse 1, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. So Jonah calls out to the Lord, and he basically says, God, kill me. I'd rather die than see these people delivered. God is so merciful. He raises up a plant as Jonah sits, I imagine, on the edge of the hill, waiting for God to rain down fire and brimstone on Nineveh. And as he sits there, it says he sets up a booth. God provides some shade with a plant. And then it says in the night, God allowed a worm to kill the plant. Jonah wakes up. He's ticked when the east wind begins to beat on him. And he calls out to the Lord, Lord, kill me. And then he says some really revealing things. In essence, Jonah says, this is why I didn't want to come, God. I don't like these folks, and I wanted them to die. But I knew you were merciful and graceful, and you would deliver them. Jonah chapter 4 ends with God giving an appeal to Jonah. In fact, God has the last word. And he basically says, man, you're more upset, Jonah, about a plant dying than you are grateful that I have spared thousands of people. So, a few thoughts on this chapter. Number one, it causes me to be reminded of my necessity to truly be changed. Because Jonah seems like he's changed in Jonah chapter 3. But his heart was still hard. Sometimes we deal with sin in our lives that we think we're over, but we're really not. And then when things get frustrating, our true colors show. What sin in your life is there that's still under the surface that you need to get out? Second, do you truly rejoice in the salvation of others? Jonah didn't. What a mistake, what a problem. Jonah had all these awesome things. He had spoken in this amazing way so as to save and deliver all of these people, but Jonah was still angry. Finally, as you think on this chapter, I want to ask you what it reminds you of when it comes to the big picture of Jesus. When we use biblical theology, we recognize that Jonah is a type of Christ. The Ninevites are a type of unconverted people, the Gentiles. You know, it's interesting, even in the New Testament, the Jews struggled with what it meant for the Gentile nations to come to salvation. Let me put it very simple to you. Have you identified people in your life that you have a grudge toward, and you've even said, no, they don't really deserve forgiveness? I believe that Jonah actually found forgiveness eventually. Jonah's not the hero of this book. God is. Jonah's really kind of the bad guy. The Ninevites certainly aren't. They're the righteous ones, more righteous than Jonah. So as I look at the book of Jonah, I believe very seriously Jonah was the author. Later in life, he sat down and realized the fault of his ways, and he doesn't try to make himself look good. So as you meet, I want to ask yourselves, have you truly sought forgiveness? Have you truly been changed? Are there things you're still clinging to? Are there people that you've marked out? Nah, they're not worth it. How much compassion do you have for the lost? Well, that's about all the time we have today. I just want to thank you for joining us and checking in on this video, and I hope that this is really useful for your community groups.